Do you think there will be a war with China in the 21st century?
I don't know.
今天的视频来源是个外网的视频，美国专家米尔斯海默回答：怎么既压制中国又来避免战争呢？先看视频。
My argument is there is right now a serious security competition. And at the same time, there is a real possibility of war. Whether or not we avoid it is very hard to say. We did during the Cold War. We had a serious security competition from roughly 1947 to 1989. And we thankfully avoided war. Probably came the closest in 1962 with the Cuban Missile Crisis. But we avoided it. And I think we can avoid it here. Is it for sure? No.
You've said that China won't move militarily, in part because it's, as you said, amphibious operations are difficult. Why will China not move in your sense, in the near future?
Well, it's because there's this body of water, which is a big body of water, and getting across water is very difficult, unless you can walk on water.
So geography still has a role to play in the 21st century?
Oh, yeah, I think geography is very important. Big bodies of water really matter.
Yeah.
In an ideal world, you'd like to have the Pacific Ocean between you and any potential adversary. 6,000 miles.
Yes.
6,000 miles of water, hard to get across.
Yes.
If you're a country and I'm a country and there's land between us, I can take my Panzer divisions and I can go right across the land and get into your country or attack your country. And you, of course, can take your Panzer divisions and come across that same piece of land. But if there's a big body of water between us, your Panzer divisions can't go across the water. And then the question is, how do you get them across the water? And that's very tricky. And in a world where you have lots of submarines and you have lots of aircraft and you have missiles that are land-based that can hit those surface ships, it is very, very hard to attack across a body of water. And all you have to do is think about Normandy, the American invasion of Normandy, June 6, 1944, coming in on Omaha Beach, right? Oh boy, that was really difficult.
But there is a growing asymmetry of military power there, that even though it's difficult.
That is correct.
So I guess
that is correct.
这里我先吐槽一下，虽然海默大佬大部分的观点没什么问题，但是把岛子比作诺曼底确实是有点老掉牙了，这也是西方大量普通网友会经常嘴上提的言论。现实来说，我承认水面要比陆地要难搞得多，但我认为中国的海军就是冲着美国对标的，最终的目标就是压下美国海军，平分甚至是取得全球大洋的领导权。在这个远大目标下，小岛子又算什么呢？所以水面竞争确实是很难，但压下美国我都觉得是大概率，更何况是一个小的阶段性成果呢？我怀疑海默大佬并不是真的老掉牙了，而是在践行他自己视频里的观点。他想要威慑我们，让我们相信这是一个双输的结果，我们就不敢动了。
So I recently had a conversation with Elon Musk, and he says that, China is quite serious about the one China policy. And it seems inevitable that we'll have to be, if you look at this pragmatically in the 21st century, it seems inevitable to have to be a part of China. And so we can get there either diplomatically or militarily. Like, what do you think about the inevitability of that kind of idea? When a nation says this is a top priority for us, what do you think about them meaning it? And what do we do about that?
There's no question it's a top priority for them. And there's no question they mean it. But it's also a top priority for us not to let them take top.
Why exactly?
Because it's an important strategic asset. Many people will say it's because democracy, but that doesn't matter that much. It's because of two strategic reasons. The first is that if we were to let, it would have hugely negative consequences for our alliance structure in East Asia. Mm-hmm. To contain China, we need allies. We have an alliance structure. And our allies, Japanese, South Koreans, Filipinos, Australians, they're all counting on us to be there for them. And if we say we're not going to defend the Chinese attack, they're going to say, I bet if the Chinese attack us, the Americans won't be there for us. So it would have a damaging effect on our alliance structure, which we cannot afford. because containing China is a wicked problem. It's a powerful state. You were getting to this before when you talked about China versus Taiwan. So that's the first reason. Second reason is you want to bottle up the Chinese Navy and the Chinese Air Force inside the first island chain. You don't want to let them get out into the Pacific. You don't want them dominating the waters of East Asia. You want to bottle them up again inside the first island chain. And you can only do that if you control. You don't control, take it out into the Philippine Sea, into the Pacific and the Western Pacific, and cause all sorts of problems.
这里我再来吐槽一下，岛子本身并不重要，但岛子就像美国霸权在美国的第一岛链的多米诺骨牌，很重要。这个观点我在以前的视频我说过很多次了，我也和很多网友辩论过这个问题。有些网友认为岛子与美国的霸权无关，这里有个美国人亲自讲了，总该有人信了吧？而且最近我看到了不少网友说，不要拿巴以问题来对比岛子问题，因为岛子是我们内部问题，所以不要相提并论。但我认为任何问题其实都有多面性、多个角度。本质上，以色列和岛子都是经典的离岸平衡抓手问题。有很多专家都讲过这个问题，甚至包括拜登他自己在年轻的视频的时候也讲过，以色列是殖民中东、保护美国在中东利益成本最低的办法。没有以色列，美国就只能自己下场再造一个以色列了。所以岛子对美国来说和以色列的作用其实没有本质区别，甚至包括日本、韩国这些第一、第二岛链的一些国家，区别在于中东实在太弱了，它散碎了一片，一个以色列这种小国就让美国在中东占了上风，成功的殖民干涉了整个中东。而在东方，即使这么一大帮子小弟也压不住我们的崛起。我记得在观其有语的杨师傅说过一个办法，美国如果主动归还，他也许还能保住自己的面子，让岛子不要成为美国霸权崩溃的第一环。这个说法，这个忽悠听起来确实挺合理的，但我觉得美国人他即使真信了，他们也赌不起他们盟友不信啊。
Saying all that, you've also said the center of humiliation. Japan and the United States are a source of that humiliation for China. Don't you think they see the other side of that?
Absolutely.
And in the interest of avoiding a world war, I guess the question is, how do we avoid a world war? It doesn't seem like the military involvement in the conflict between China is the way.
Well, I don't want...
There's no good answers here. I'm just saying.
There are no good...
which is the less bad option.
Well, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you deter China from invading. You want to avoid a war. You and I are in complete agreement on that. We don't want a war, but we want to contain China. We do not want to let China dominate Asia. That's what the Americans are principally concerned with here. And it's what China's neighbors are principally concerned with. This includes the Japanese, the South Koreans, the Filipinos, Australians, and they don't want, and we don't want China to dominate the region. So we have to contain it. But at the same time, and this should be music to your ears, we not only want to contain it, we want to make sure we don't end up in a shooting match with the Chinese, because this could be disastrous. So you have to have a very smart policy. You have to build powerful military forces, and you have to make sure you don't do anything that's provocative. On Taiwan, the last thing you want is for the government to declare its independence, because the Chinese have said, if Taiwan will go to war. And of course, we don't want that. So my view is you want to smartly build up your military forces, and you want to do everything you can to contain China, and at the same time not be provocative.
So a big component of that is making sure your military, the U.S. military, is bigger than the Chinese military?
Not necessarily. It's an interesting question. A lot of people think that to make deterrence work, right, you have to be able to beat the Chinese, and therefore you need a much bigger military. And I don't think over time that's possible, right? I think it's probably not even possible now to beat the Chinese in a war in a war in the South China Sea. I think what you want to do is make it clear to the Chinese either that there will be no winner. In other words, you don't have to win, but you want to make sure they don't win. Okay, it's a lose-lose proposition if they go to war or what have you. And if you can't do that, right, you think that they're so powerful that they're ultimately going to win, you want to convince them that victory would be a Pyrrhic victory. In other words, they would pay a god-awful price to win the war. You follow what I'm saying? So, excuse me, the best strategy for deterrence is you win. China loses. Second best strategy is a stalemate. Nobody wins. Third best strategy is but they pay a god-awful price. And the fourth possibility, which you don't want, is they win quickly and decisively, right? If that's the case, then you don't have much to do.
笑死！最后我再来吐槽一下，其实海默大佬也挺矛盾的，他又想压制中国，但基于自己的学术修养和现实主义观点，又无法太不要脸，随便讲。当主持人问美国军队是不是应该一直保持比中国强大，如果按海默大佬的逻辑或者一般美国人的想法，应该是一直美国军保持强大。但是他又深知美国已经做不到了，所以他退而求其次，说互相威慑。因为你看他讲的上中下四策，最上策就是美国赢中国输，第二才是互相威慑。与他一开始回答主持人说美国军队不一定要压过中国是自相矛盾的。我相信美国他要是做得到能压过中国，以海默大佬的理论回答，肯定是要追求最上策呀。所以为了致敬现实主义的海默大佬，我们当然应该也要追求第四策，甚至是第五种结果呀。什么是第五种呢？我相信海默大佬他当然想到了，没有明说罢了。我相信海默大佬当然也想得到，那就是随着中国的产能不断碾压美国，中国的军力大概率也会碾压美国。但可见，即使是海默大佬这种以现实主义著称的大佬，其实也不太愿意讨论美国完全被压制的结局呢。因为以他的名声来说，虽然已经被边缘化了，但他只要讲了这种可能性，都一定会产生相应的效果。